What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. Let's get started on this channel setting. I've got 2 pieces of 20 gauge square, 4 pieces of 20 gauge half round, and I'm working 20 gauge half round off the spool. First step is to bind those 2 pieces of 20 gauge square with your 20 gauge half round. I went around 3 times, and you'll see me pinching here with my flat nose pliers to get everything nice and flat. And then I'll open up these little ends here and tuck away this last little bit of our half round, secure it, snip the little tail off so that we can continue to move forward. Once we've made that snip, it's time to grab our half round wires, get them all flat side down, round side up, and even with one another, so that we can lay them across the top of those 2 pieces of 20 gauge square. They're going to have to lay on top of each other a little bit, and that's okay, as long as the flat sides are down and the round sides are up when we bind these 6 wires. I'll go again 3 times around all of the wires, and then again pinch with my little flat nose, make sure everything's nice and tight, and roll off these tails. I like to go 3 times each around those half round wire, or those square wires, I'm sorry, because we need these little half round bits to be secure. They're the top part of our setting and going to hold our stones in place. And if they can wiggle or pull loose, we'll have a major problem. So here you see me getting that nice and tight and snipping those ends off, and doing the same thing on the other side. And now our half round wires are nice and secure, and we'll be able to move on to setting the stone. You want to be sure to go ahead and take your time in these beginning steps. If we are not efficient with our work here, there's guaranteed to be a problem in the future. And you'll see me, I've bent up my half round a little bit, so I'm going to spend some time working on that to get it straight again. And then we pull up all of 4 of those half round wires, and we'll bind again just the 20 gauge square with our half round that we're working off the spool. Make sure that we have enough space there for our little 3mm cabochon. For me, that was 4 times around the base wires. And this is one of my favorite parts here. We've got to pre-shape these little half round wires to fit around our cabochon, and I like to use just the tips of my chain nose to make them rounded enough to be able to hold the stone in place. It's a lot easier than forming this shape around the cabochons, at least for me. And then we'll just pop our little cab in there, tighten everything down, and get back to binding again with our 20 gauge half round off the spool. I usually go twice between the stones, even though I do 3 at the beginning and end. I just feel like I like the way that smaller space looks better. And now we just repeat 4 more times around those base wires, pre-shape the half round to hold in the cabochon. Oh, I've got a kink in my wire. I'm going to straighten that out. And like I've said before, these little steps are worth doing. If you don't take the time to keep your wire organized and straight, it will present issues, especially half round, because of the way that it twists. Those couple of seconds are worth taking. And here we get back to pre-shaping those wires to hold in our little cabochon. Lots of little minor adjustments. Our first stone in this setting was a citrine. This one's a carnelian. Next will be a garnet. You can use whichever stones you like in whatever combination. This setting can be used for larger stones. I've set all the way up to 5x7s in this setting, or even smaller ones. I've seen 1.5 millimeters in this kind of a setting. I'm sure there were smaller wires involved. Now we're just going to make whatever minor adjustments are necessary to be sure this little cabochon stays in place. And then we'll go again and bind with the 20 gauge half round off the spool. Twice over all 6 wires. And now we'll lift those top 4 half rounds and again bind the 2 20 gauge square 4 times with our half round off the spool, and again pre-shape our 4 half round wires to hold in our little cabochon. All these little steps feel like they take so long to do individually. But when we pull them together, it's so worth doing. It's definitely worth taking your time and making the little adjustments along the way. So because this was our last cabochon, we'll bind all 6 wires 3 times. We want to make this part match our start. So we bound all 6 3 times. We'll bind just the 20 gauge square 3 times. And we'll tuck in our binding wire, snip that off, and then all that's left to do is wrap these little half round bits around our base wires and make sure that they're nice and secure. If these move, our settings are compromised. So we have to make sure to get them nice and tight onto these wires so that they can't slide around on us and loosen our setting. I like to go 3 times with both wires, so it looks like 6 wraps around that 20 gauge square. That way I know neither one of those wires is going anywhere. And same thing on the other side. I'll also do some minor adjustments here at the end where I'll squeeze down on all my little bindings and make sure that everything's nice and tight, that all of the faces of my stones are visible, and harden the wire an extra little bit. I don't know if you knew, but the harder wire is, the brighter a polish it'll take. So even though I work in dead soft wire, I want to harden it as I go so that I can have a nice brightly polished piece when it's done. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them and I will do my best to answer. And I will see you again in another week or so. Please feel free to hit that subscribe button, like, and share. There we have it.